Hey, Hound Dogs, I'm David Hankins.
I'm Paul Hankins. I'm Trevor Hankins.
And you're on the air with Power Squared. Our apologies, we had some technical difficulties. I'm actually using a different computer to do the show tonight. We're here to talk about X-Men. Should I do that? Not only, I guess partly we're leading up to a big X-Men film event.
Yes, Deadpool and Wolverine.
Which is coming out the weekend of Comic-Con.
Yes. That was terrible timing on their part. Yes.
So we decided to watch all the X-Men films leading up to that. So we're quasi X-Men experts. We're not really going to talk too much at all maybe about the comic books that are behind all this, because I don't think we've read very much of it.
The only X-Men comics I've read are a good amount of Deadpool.
Deadpool accessory.
Yeah, Deadpool accessory. And a couple of event comics.
Okay. So we're not going to really get into the mythology of the comic books and all that, right?
No.
But we are going to talk a little bit about you guys. So let's talk about what got you interested in X-Men in the first place. Was it Deadpool or was there something else?
X-Men Evolution.
Okay.
Yes.
And
We grew up watching X-Men Evolution on Kids WB.
All right.
Yes.
All right. And then you've since watched other X-Men cartoons?
We have since watched all the American X-Men cartoons.
Okay.
Yes.
I say that because there is an anime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, what just for people who may not know, what are the series that you've watched?
Well, I guess I'll just say the order of their release.
Sure.
There was X-Men the Animated Series, aka X-Men TAS. There was X-Men Evolution, which was the one we saw first. There was Wolverine and the X-Men. And then there was recently X-Men 97
Okay.
on Disney+.
X-Men 97 is a...
Continuation of TAS.
All right.
Yes.
Because the continuation is called 97. I've seen some people call TAS 92.
Right.
Because it came out in 1992.
Right. It's called retro gaming. Okay, so, and you have a favorite, obviously, Evolution. Why
Yes,
Why
yes.
Evolution over
Well,
TAS or 97?
I don't know if we mentioned this on a previous episode, but we grew up in an era where legacy series were experimenting a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Like our first Batman series was The Batman, and
Our formal introduction to Transformers was Robots in Disguise 2001.
Okay.
yes, so we end up liking certain versions of a show partly because it's different. In the case of X-Men Evolution, it's not only different from all the other interpretations of X-Men, but it's different in a good way.
Okay.
In Evolution, most of the characters are teenagers instead of adults. You still have some characters like Wolverine and Storm who are teachers.
Yes.
But most of the other X-Men are students, and you get to see you get to see new character dynamics, so they don't have the Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine love triangle. It's instead a Scott, Jean, Rogue love triangle,
Okay.
which is actually to me better than better than the other love triangle.
Okay.
Also, Cyclops is likable.
Yeah,
Sometimes he's not, yeah.
Cyclops is likable. Jean Grey does something.
Okay. Is Wolverine in this at all?
Yes, but he's used less, so it helps. So the other X-Men actually get time to shine. The first season is more setting up all the characters, but each character gets a spotlight and proper development outside of, like, I know the characters got development in TAS,
Mm-hmm.
but it felt like in Evolution there was more room for development instead of focusing a lot more on plot.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you get more of the interpersonal relationships of the X-Men.
Okay.
And even the villains get spotlight episodes, so you actually understand them on a deeper level than just he is a bad guy.
Okay.
Yes.
Or he's with Magneto, so therefore he is bad.
And then there's still the bigger
Yeah.
Apocalypto and
Yeah. Apocalypse.
Sorry. It's a Mel Gibson movie. Sorry.
And actually, the bigger villains get more of a build up. So when they show up, they feel like a lot more of a threat.
Uh-huh.
Like in X-Men TAS, I like X-Men TAS. I just like Evolution more.
Better. Yeah.
With TAS Apocalypse, I got tired of him.
Yes.
Okay.
He showed up enough. So like, can anything stop him? And then with Evolution, they spend a whole season building up to him, and then he's the villain for a whole season.
Okay.
Yes.
So but it's done in a way he feels like a genuine threat, and he feels more intimidating the first time he shows up.
I want to say, like, the first season, they also, like, build up Magneto.
Yeah. So when Magneto shows up, he has more of a presence.
Another example is, like, the Sentinels.
Yeah.
In TAS, they're like, from the start, but, at some point, they just sort of, discounting how they're used in 97. Like, at some point, they just sort of become cannon fodder.
Okay.
But in Evolution, the Sentinels are not there at the start. So when one actually does show up, it feels actually like a threat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you like the development better on Evolution?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you watch Wolverine and the X-Men?
Yeah, the three of us saw it.
Okay. All right. And what did we think of that?
I'll also say one last thing about Evolution. It introduced X-23.
Yes. So
Okay.
it had a big contribution to the X-Men lore as a whole.
Okay.
And then also say with Evolution, you got to see storylines that no other X-Men interpretation has tried. Like, there's an episode where Nightcrawler, they actually explain Nightcrawler's teleportation because he's actually going through another dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And because of what he ends up seeing in that dimension, he's a little afraid to go through it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And then we also get an episode with Scott's brother.
Yes.
Who in one of the movies is there's Scott's brother, but he kind of gets
Yeah.
X early.
But Scott's brother has a whole episode.
Oh, that's interesting. So more development. You liked it better. How long did that run for?
Ran for 4 seasons.
Yes.
I forget how many years that translates to.
Okay.
Probably the same number of years.
Okay. And we all watched Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yeah.
Yes. Circle back to the.
So I remember liking Wolverine and the X-Men, although because Wolverine is top billing, it's mostly about him.
He can be a very dominant character.
Yeah. So that's why I like in Evolution they actually my understanding is they intentionally scaled back how much they use Wolverine.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because he can dominate the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because he's always presented as kind of a little older than the other ones.
Yeah.
You know, and
Like he's I think it's implied he's been around for like several wars,
Yeah.
depending on the
interpretation.
timeline. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the basis for X-Men stuff for you.
Yeah.
And then you discovered Deadpool at some point.
Yes. The first time I actually read an X-Men comic was through the Daniel Way run of Deadpool. I haven't read the entire run, but at the time I liked it enough that it hooked me into Deadpool, and I had kept up with the Posehn and Duggan run, which I thought was the best run of Deadpool.
Okay.
And I haven't admittedly haven't read too much of the older material, like the Joe Kelly run, but I had been slowly collecting those.
I think recently you've gotten a little more serious about trying to do that.
Okay, so
And I also have a signed New Mutants number 98, like the actual book, but I later bought a facsimile edition so I could read the story without ruining the expensive book.
So, I guess a little history. Who created the X-Men besides the obvious? Who actually did it?
I think that was Lee and was it Ditko?
It was him or Kirby.
I
Okay, that's
know
fine.
Ditko was Spider-Man.
All right.
Yes.
For some reason, I think it was Jack Kirby, but I don't know. That
Might-
for a fact.
I think the credits for 97 said Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
Stan Lee's on
it might have
everything.
been Lee and Kirby then.
Stanley's on everything, though.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of a creature like a Spider-Man. Do that. Okay, I created it. Anyway.
so I'm sure someone will correct us, but I guess
Yeah.
we'll lock in our answer at Lee and Kirby.
All right. So,
Sometimes we are dumb.
again, we're not experts. We're just, talking about the movies. Or mostly about the movies.
So if we're wrong, feel free to correct us in the
Yeah.
comment.
Feel free. It gives you fodder to hate us with. So, we decided, as I said earlier, to watch all the X-Men movies in chronological order.
In
Yes.
release order.
Yes.
Well, okay. Release order.
Yeah.
I meant that. That's what I meant.
Right.
So, shall we start talking about?
Yeah.
This.
So, what prompted this was we bought a set a long time ago.
Yes. Then with Deadpool and Wolverine coming out, I was like, we've never actually watched all of them. And I didn't know if
And now we
they
know
would
why.
make some reference to... because... No Way Home,
Yeah.
just live action Spider-Verse,
Mm-hmm.
made reference to like 2 or 3 other continuities,
Mhm.
which fortunately we had seen.
As they came.
I thought, I don't know if Deadpool's going to do the same thing.
Right.
They confirmed later you don't need to have watched anything, which is great, but wanted to make sure.
Right.
So we watched, and they finally gave us the excuse to watch them all.
Mostly through this imported box set.
Which promises a 3D version of one of the movies and doesn't deliver, as I recall.
No.
All right.
It says X-Men Apocalypse it has a 3D option, but it does not.
All right. So, shall we start with the first film, which I want to say was called The X-Men.
Yes, X-Men.
Or X-Men, sorry.
Yeah. So I'll just hold this up for reference for those watching.
Okay.
So this is for those listening, this is the trilogy set. So the first X-Men.
Right.
I thought the first movie was a solid start.
Yes.
Yes.
It does have some, like 2000s jank with special effects and a little bit of the dialogue.
Yeah.
Like Storm's line to Toad. It was actually pretty good.
Yes.
I thought it did well with having Magneto as a... It actually starts off with Magneto's backstory,
Right.
which is actually a pretty... At the time, that was a really powerful way to open a superhero movie.
Right. Which they returned to in another film.
Yeah, that's very important for Magneto's motivation.
Right.
But then as they introduce the other characters, we get to know more about them. Like Rogue is a major character in the first movie, and of course so is Wolverine.
Yes. Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
I think what helps is they, even though it's introducing like a bunch of characters, they sort of keep it, I want to say, to a sort of a minimum
Yeah.
It doesn't overwhelm you with too many X-Men characters.
Yeah, and then even though Magneto's plan, like threatens the world, it's not. It's in the actual fight sort of is in a small location, which, considering the giant spectacles of modern superhero movies, where they
waste everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
I actually
Like literally drop where they literally drop a city.
or a country.
Yeah, that's what I
I actually like how 2000s superhero movies have the final battle in a small location.
Okay.
So it's a more intimate space.
Yeah,
All right.
which actually lets you get more creative with.
And this is okay. Is this one where we see them develop his chamber and it starts with? Is that the one with the CIA involved and all that? Am I making that? Am I on the wrong one?
That's First Class,
Okay, sorry. Oh well. Anyway, okay.
I think.
But as I recall, I did like the movie.
Yeah.
And then there was
Here Jackman starts proving he's actually really good.
right.
This
The next X2.
or X-Men 2.
Right.
Yeah. Was X2.
This.
And I thought, I think we had a little bit of different opinion on it. Personally, I thought that was, of the original trilogy, that was the best one.
Okay.
It elaborated more on Wolverine's backstory. Stryker was actually was kind of an intimidating villain, even though he is a regular human.
This.
Or that is to say, non-mutant. And it managed, I guess, went bigger, but it didn't overdo it.
Right.
It still had that sense of like intimate scale, and it was a personal story for Wolverine.
All the stories are Wolverine.
The whole series is about Wolverine.
Okay.
But
Um,
I thought it had like better writing, better visuals, pretty much better everything.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah,
who reviewed it?
I did.
Okay. And so you liked it a
Yeah.
lot. Okay. Good. All right. And then we came to
X-Men: The Last Stand,
right.
which I always thought they should have called it X3.
Well, I think even wasn't the poster shows Wolverine's claws or whatever. So
Yes, but I mean they should have called the
Actually titled it.
yeah, I
Yes.
think they're trying to subtly show
It's
that's part of it.
I know. It was like even as a kid when it came out, I wondered why they didn't call it X3. That's beside the point.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, this introduces the idea that there's a cure for the mutation.
Oh yes.
And like in, I think this is influenced by the comics. I think they're all influenced by the comics in some way, but with that, like I remember in TAS that came up as an episode, and Rogue was seriously considering taking it.
Mm-hmm.
And like in the movie, she's seriously considering taking it.
Right.
But then at the same time, in the movie in general, beyond that is kind of a mess because it also tries to do Dark Phoenix.
Yes.
Yes.
Something about Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
And
And she sides with Magneto.
yeah,
Doesn't she? And then Wolverine has to.
yeah,
Yes.
and that
This is
And-
when she kills Scott, right? At the lake,
yeah,
they kiss and
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
But interestingly, Wolverine has to do at the end actually does come back in another movie.
right.
It informs his character.
Remind me.
In the Wolverine, he sees visions of Jean,
Right.
based on what he had to do in Last Stand.
So in the movies, Jean is a love interest of his.
Yeah.
Constantly, yeah. Okay.
So it has that love triangle guy.
Yeah. Anyway, that it had potential, but the third movie had potential, but it just couldn't live up to it.
Right.
And I think I might be the bronze medal of the trilogy.
So silver, gold, bronze is kind of see it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, kind of.
Now, before we move on, question: what do you think of the fact that instead of the comics costumes, they wear the black leather?
That is very,
I know that's the
very 2000s.
Yeah.
yeah,
Probably.
it's a sort of controversial decision within the fandom.
Right.
Because I guess consider at the same time Spider-Man had more or less comics accurate costumes.
Yes.
Right.
Doc Ock, of course, looked a little different because of Sam Raimi
Yeah.
vibe.
But yeah. Again, it's probably to look of the times. And, oh, they look silly in the yellow and blah blah blah.
Yeah, they probably weren't. I'm guessing it was. I didn't mind how it looked on screen. I guess it's more I got used to it. But they probably weren't confident about doing it then.
And this was back in the days when Disney was spelled Fox, right?
Yes.
Is Last Stand the one with Juggernaut?
Yes.
That kind of screwed him up there.
Yeah, he was kind of a joke.
Yeah.
He was just there to say, He was just there to do the "I'm the Juggernaut, bitch" line, and then just,
Yeah.
I also
then he's
thought,
kind of shoved aside later.
I also thought it was interesting what they did with, in the trilogy, it was interesting what they did with Mystique's design.
Yeah, that actually worked. I like
Um,
that interpretation.
Now, I don't know the situation that Fox was in, but I do know with like Spider-Man at Sony that they had to they had rights to certain characters and they had to keep using them or they would lose the rights. So maybe Juggernaut, they threw him in there because they were afraid they might lose rights to it or something. I don't know.
I think at that point they threw in Juggernaut because he was a fan favorite.
Okay.
This.
I'm just, again, guessing. All right. So we got through the first trilogy and whew, that's enough. But no.
And then we jump around a little bit. So the next one is, oh yeah,
I think it's mostly your department.
yeah.
Next one is X-Men Origins Wolverine. This is a Wolverine duology. So
So double pack, and then so X-Men Origins. I reviewed this one.
Okay.
So it's bad.
yes.
I like parts of X-Men Origins. The opening is good.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically that war montage with him and Sabretooth.
Right.
That was done really well.
Mm-hmm.
I also actually didn't mind some of the actors, like Will.I.am was actually okay.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
It's silly, yes, but he was minimal in the movie, and as in minimal screen time.
Stunt casting.
Yeah, but he did okay.
Yeah. he was
I
fine.
also liked Wade Wilson.
Yeah, Wade Wilson, I liked.
Okay.
There's a reason I say that. Then it really falls apart when he goes to my brain wants to say Genosha, but I don't think that's right.
No, I don't think Genosha came up in any of the movies.
No, that's why I know I'm wrong there. So When he goes to the island is where it completely falls apart.
Okay.
Because he Stryker is in this movie is kind of weird, and there's the worst part of the movie is a Deadpool.
Oh, he just stands there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, we need your powers for the Deadpool. Or the pool. The Deadpool. And it's Deadpool in name only because they took the Merc with a mouth and sewed his mouth shut. Which was,
Right.
that was Tom Rothman's idea. It was a brilliant idea. And then the way they try to erase Wolverine's memory is really awkward. And
only an adamantium bullet can kill someone with adamantium in their body. Oh, also, actually, it'll just erase his memory.
Right.
it flip flops. And then Rick Xavier randomly shows up.
Yes.
Okay.
At the end and saves people, including Scott, who is there for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie's just bad.
Also, they didn't use Gambit that well.
No, they didn't use Gambit that well.
Is this also where the younger Stryker couldn't have grown into the older Stryker that we saw in the first few movies?
I think so.
Yeah, because he's a little short Irish guy, and then this is a tall. Anyway.
No, not yours.
Yeah. This series is sort of a little plagued by accents. Anyway, okay, so bad.
Yes. It also has a farmhouse scene that is done better in another movie.
Yes.
Okay.
I like the idea of it.
Right.
So, next up is
X-Men First Class.
yes.
Is in this Beginnings trilogy set.
Yeah.
Where all the characters that you've learned to love from the first one are now played by other people younger than them,
Yeah.
who don't look like, again, that they would grow up to be them.
Yeah.
James McAvoy's a good actor, but he's not the same as Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
First Class, if I'm right, was originally conceived as a reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have a different, what's it, rate of it? Mystique.
Yes. Well, her name is Raven.
Right, yeah.
And then she's Mystique.
Right. Okay.
I think First Class was alright.
Yeah.
It was better. I think it's better as a reboot as opposed to retconning it to be the first thing. Because when it's the first thing, it doesn't gel as well. Because they establish early on with the original trilogy that Magneto and Charles worked together to create Cerebro.
Right.
Yes.
But in First Class, that's not how it works.
Now, First Class also, isn't that the one where they kind of retcon the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Yeah.
Sort of make it their own, I suppose what it was. Yes, and then we find out why Xavier is in a wheelchair, I guess.
Yeah. So,
again, it's not horrible. It's just not as good as the first one
yeah.
or second one.
Yeah. I think I think at this point we kind of hit a rash of movies where it's not as good as the original trilogy.
Right.
Yes.
Or not as good as the first two.
Although, on the subject of better things, the next one is The Wolverine.
The Wolverine.
Not X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Right.
That, I really like that movie
Yeah.
because it put him in peril and all that, and but you sort of saw a romantic side of him.
Yeah.
You saw kind of a funny side of him when he like drops the guy off.
How'd you know there was a pool down there? I didn't.
And you get the sense of his, immortality. He survives the bomb in Hiroshima.
Yeah. 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 It was more what X-Men Origins wanted to be, but couldn't be because of bad executive decisions. The Wolverine, yeah, it's more emotional, and
Now, what I don't like is I really liked the Japanese actors and characters in the film,
yeah,
Yes.
and I'm not going to attempt to pronounce anyone's names, character or actor, but the one that was sort of his bodyguard
yeah,
leaves with him and then is gone by the end of the movie. And
Yeah.
I kind of like, what the hell happened to her? I liked her, and you kind of like make me like her, and then you just sort of dump her in the end of the film.
Yeah.
She's gone.
Yeah.
I did not like that about that.
Well, they
and,
had
and I
to-
know they needed to do it for the next. But what happened to her?
yeah,
You don't make me care about a character and then just it disappeared. I didn't appreciate that part. But I thought that it gave a different side of him. There's a lot of good action in it.
yeah,
That was one of my favorite films. Wolverine can be an overwhelming character, but he can also be a strong character, and a lot of that's probably Hugh Jackman.
yeah.
But that was really, I think, was one of the better. One
Yeah.
of the better, not.
Probably the only real criticism of the Wolverine is at the end. The ending is still better than Origins, but
Yes.
at the end it becomes more comic book.
Yeah. So, it was really
But it was still a good movie.
Yes.
And we also saw the Unleashed Extended Edition,
right
which we went out of our way
to get.
to get. And the extended version is better.
Yes.
It doesn't magically make the ending way better, but
But
it
it's
does improve the movie. Like, it has more of the, it has more blood.
Yes. There's a bit where get in the extended cut, it gets very violent.
Yeah, but it does fill in more plot stuff, fills in some gaps, expands on the characters a little more, and is overall like the way to watch it.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, I'd recommend.
I'll also say, since the movie takes place mostly, if not entirely, in Japan, based on my understanding of Japanese culture, it felt authentic.
Or
Yeah.
I just felt like I was respecting it.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, there's a sense of pulling together and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So very enjoyable.
Yes.
All right.
Then next one, also enjoyable, is X-Men: Days of Future Past.
yeah. Also on here.
Okay.
So, do you remember Days of Future Past?
Isn't that where they're in Vietnam and all that?
Days of Future Past, they had to go back in time
Okay.
using Wolverine.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yes, and he had to go back and convince Raven not to kill Trask.
Yeah.
Sorry. Because they're all time based. And that's going back to the signing of the end of the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also, the movie also creates a new timeline.
Yes.
So, the whole thing with X-Men Origins?
Now, the other thing is Magneto is being held for the murder of Kennedy.
Yeah, I didn't like that development.
No.
And because only his magic or his ability with metal could have made that bullet do that, which is kind of a disproven
Yeah.
theory.
I'll.
I mean, not him doing it, but the magic bullet part of it.
I find that explanation. I'll admit, I find that explanation clever, but I still didn't like it.
I don't like when people rewrite history like that. Especially,
Yes.
it's an
It's
event.
also,
It's kind of close to home since I was a kid in Dallas when that happened.
I think this also gave us Quicksilver.
Now he's one of my favorite. They should do a Quicksilver movie. He's one of my favorite characters.
I was going to say Quicksilver is the best character.
Yeah, by far. In this movie. They should have more Quicksilver. I'm sorry.
But Days of Future Past was actually pretty good.
Yes.
I think better than First Class.
Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
Now that I remember it, yes, it was better.
and then that's also retcon First Class to be part of the timeline, but it also kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, they kind of. I know with. I'm just asking a question. If you don't know the answer, that's cool. But I know with like Spider-Man, there's the Amazing Spider-Man and all these different versions of him. Is there different X-Men like that, or is this just them effing with the timeline to make a movie out of it?
Well, Days of Future Past is a major storyline from the comics.
Okay.
Yes.
It was also adapted in TAS in a
Okay.
probably more comics accurate way.
Okay.
But
And yes, the title is a music reference.
anyway, what was the question again?
Are there different, I guess, ongoing timelines of X-Men like there is for Spider-Man? And if you don't know, that's cool.
Well, with the thing about Marvel comics is I saw someone put it this way. It's really multiple different versions of the same character that Marvel decided were all canon with each other.
Multiverses make my head hurt to a certain degree, but
Yeah. Well,
but anyway,
it's complicated.
right? Okay, that's fine.
There's less of a multiverse, more of a timeline thing.
That's what I was just trying to figure out. So Quicksilver should have. They gave the Flash a movie. They should give Quicksilver a movie.
The visual effects for Quicksilver were better than the
Oh
Flash.
yeah, and he's a better actor. He's more fun, and he's probably too old now to play it, but he was good.
And this came out years earlier.
Yeah, so he's really he makes the movie.
Yeah.
We don't have a physical copy of this, but there's also an alternate cut. That's the Rogue cut.
Right.
Yeah, which actually improves the movie substantially.
Right. Which we also watched as part of this.
Yeah.
It inserts Rogue into the story, which helps explain certain things.
It explains a lot.
Yes. And they also like add scenes that help fill in gaps.
Yeah.
Okay, so we like the Rogue version better.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you watch one cut, I'd recommend the Rogue cut.
Yes.
And the Rogue cut has Rogue in it. So there you
Yeah.
go.
So then we've got
There's a lot of these movies.
yeah.
Next we have Deadpool.
All right.
Yes.
So from having played the sewn up Merc with a mouth,
Yes.
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. Ryan Reynolds. The history. I don't want to get too deep into it because I'm trying to watch the time. But the history of this movie is just as interesting as the movie itself.
Okay.
The short version is Ryan Reynolds when Ryan Reynolds was contracted to be Wade Wilson / Deadpool in X-Men Origins, or in general, he was assigned to be Deadpool.
Right.
He read the comics and was like, this guy needs his own movie. So for like a decade, he'd been trying to get a solo Deadpool movie off the ground. And after the test footage leaked, we
Which is
still
him.
don't.
Yeah, I think
Well,
it was him doing it. Yeah.
he says it was someone else, and actually no one knows exactly who did it. But
Right.
anyway, after that was leaked and got a positive reception, this got greenlit, but with a much smaller budget than the other X-Men movies because Fox wasn't confident in it.
Right,
and then
right.
it became at the time the best highest gross it became the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time.
Right.
Ryan Reynolds called the size of the budget the cocaine budget.
Yes. I don't know if YouTube will hit us for saying that. Anyway,
Well, you can fix that input.
anyway, yeah. So I liked this movie.
Right.
Ryan Reynolds does a great job as Deadpool. It was clear he understands and respects the character. It's very comedic, but it doesn't overdo the humor. It manages to be. It's a small personal story, and I think the lower budget actually helped with that. You really understand Deadpool as a character, or at least this interpretation.
Mm-hmm. Now the humor is I'll say slightly crass.
Yeah, that's actually in character for Deadpool. He's kind of a crass character.
Yeah.
He's a mercenary.
Right. Yeah, and some of that stuff at the beginning where he was like, helping that girl and stuff was, kind of cool. And the fact he could get those fights going. But after a while, it's like, I don't really need the bathroom humor so much.
Yeah.
And I think that was a little bit.
Some of the humor I didn't enjoy as much this time, but I still liked the story
Overall,
and
yeah.
character.
Yes.
And I would consider this overall one of the better X-Men movies.
Okay.
In fact, you like it so much, you got 4K and this Comic-Con edition signed by Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, I went out of my way to get this. I fought really hard to get the VHS,
Right.
and they last day finally got to be like probably one of the first 5 people in line, which is what
Sure.
you had to be.
Yeah.
And then we're out.
Yeah.
They misplaced the
5
means-
copies.
My guess
Just-
is the people behind the counter pocketed the 5 copies, but I
Yeah.
don't know that for a fact.
So that's pure
I'm just-
speculation on our part.
But
For
I'm
le-
watching
for le-
you guys.
for legal reasons. That is not a definitive statement.
No, it's just my opinion because you're supposed to have had 5 copies. We were like the first people at the booth. Oh, we don't have any more.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, what'd you do with it?
Yeah.
Eh,
It's like
it's
I
part-
got up really early for nothing.
The part of the problem with, I'll say, Comic-Con is people promise stuff and they, oops, we don't have it. Or a little too much.
I distinctly remember when they said they were out. Everyone in line was disappointed.
There was like a collective groan.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was actually amazing.
I think
Yes.
you and I were like the first 2 people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're already gone. How did that happen? Yeah, it's just, yeah, I
But I'm glad I got this.
yes. That was, we had to get that separately, right?
Yeah. Because I at least had this available.
Right.
Can you tell I like the movie?
No. Did you? Okay.
So then, moving on, we've got
Next, have X-Men Apocalypse.
yes, terrible.
Yeah. What happened?
I fell asleep.
It was,
You didn't miss much.
yeah, it was not very good.
No.
The acting wasn't bad, but just the plot was kind of, it was
It was dull.
it was boring.
Yeah,
Yes.
And that's like the one thing an action superhero movie's not supposed to be is dull.
yeah.
It-
And it just sort of seemed like a slog to get to it.
They do tease Apocalypse at the end of Days of Future Past, but that was not enough build up.
Yeah, right. You see the 4 horsemen and him, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's not enough.
Like it might have worked better if it was kind of like what they did with Thanos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah,
Like
Of
they
course,
spent
they-
more time building up to him.
Yes.
because you knew Thanos was out there for like many movies, and
Yeah.
Of course, no one would have thought of something like that at the time, but
yeah. Maybe they built up Thanos because of like, oh, what the hell is this? Yeah.
Well, at the time, Marvel Studios was smarter.
Yeah, and yeah, so there was really no build up. He is sort of he's that post credit scene,
Yeah.
it's like, I've never really understood what exactly Apocalypse's powers are. I'm probably gonna get hate for saying that, but the movie doesn't really make it clear what exactly his powers are.
Yeah, and there's a lot of you get the sense that he can make people bend his will or whatever. But there's a lot of like they suddenly show up at I'll say it's like a transport for mutants transport center, and like where does this come from? And that character is later in another movie, so it was kind of dull.
It clarifies. It's more like they don't explain they don't explain what specific powers he has or like what his limitations, if any, are.
The problem was it was too ambitious.
Yes.
They tried to do too much, and it just got too boring because they couldn't. It was just slow.
Quicksilver, it only helps so much.
Right. And again,
He was the bright spot.
Yes.
I wanted more of him.
Quicksilver movie.
Also, I'll point out that Apocalypse uses Four Horsemen by Metallica, because the Four Horsemen. And I checked the date of when Kill 'Em All came out versus when the movie takes place, and it just gets away with it.
Yeah, but in the little post-credit scene, you see look like a gigantic Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
But when he's resurrected in the next movie, those guys are not with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just seems like it was. And then these guys that finally get him to wake up, he kills him. Right? Great. Glad I worshipped you. All right. So we go from Snooze Fest to
the pendulum swings back to being good.
okay.
Yes.
Logan.
This is easily the best one.
Maybe, it's really high up in superhero movies
Yeah.
Yes.
because it's a movie, and very care
If
about.
there was a best picture worthy superhero movie, it would be this one.
I think so.
It's basically
Unfortunately, the Academy disagreed.
it's basically, if you will, like full power Wolverine,
Yes.
in the sense that they could actually the R rating, which was not inspired by Deadpool,
No.
let them do a lot more with the character, both in terms of the bloodshed, but also the storytelling.
Yeah.
Let them get darker, but the darkness was necessary for the movie. It's a lot more emotional. It introduces its own interpretation of X-23.
Right. Yes.
It's the live action debut of
Yeah. It's
a like you, John.
Yeah. It's a very emotional story that shows Logan is one of the last mutants
Yes.
alive at that point, so he's kind of outlived.
Everybody else.
Yeah. Which
Was
I think that weighs on him.
Yeah. Well, he's supposed to be immortal, right?
Yes, but at this point in his life, the adamantium is killing him.
Right.
like poisoning his body.
Yeah, so he's slowly dying
Right.
because he's older, he can't heal as fast, partly because he's being poisoned, and then then Charles is going.
Yeah. I mean, it's a touching. I mean, their relationship, which I kind of seemed like it was a little more hashed out in here than it was in the other movies. They always seem like he's a little on the Wolverine's a little like, hey, we're looking for somebody. Yeah, F you.
Yeah.
Some of his lines. He's like one movie. He's just like one line basically. Like that makes it. Yeah, their relationship. You get a feeling he's really he cares about Charles.
Yeah.
And is trying to do it the best he can by him. And Charles is kind of losing it.
Yeah.
And dying because he's not immortal.
Yeah.
And and again, I'm not going to try to pronounce her name. The little girl that's in the movie, if you can see this, is really good.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just well acted all the way around, and the villains are, you hate them, but you're supposed to.
And then the farmhouse scene in this movie, compared to the one in X-Men Origins, is a lot more devastating.
Yes. Oh, you feel, and because then you watch the Noir, which is also good.
Yeah.
You were like, oh yeah, these people.
Not gonna try not to spoil it too much.
Yeah, but
and then what's also interesting though is that although it's probably the darkest or one of the darkest X-Men movies, it gets hopeful at the end.
Yes.
Yes.
Because he spends the majority of the movie feeling like there's not much hope, and he's pretty cynical about having to take care of Laura.
Yeah. Laura.
Oh.
And then at the end, he realizes there is hope.
Yes, but he just won't be around for it.
Yeah.
But no, it was like, and Hugh Jackman's a really good actor.
Yeah, and he really shows his acting ability as Wolverine and Logan.
Yeah, and I'm a little worried that he's going to be about the new movie, but that's for another day. But yeah, and then they made a noir version of it, black and white version of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is, did they shoot it at black and white as they were doing it? Or
my understanding is they shot it in color, and then they meticulously I want to say color graded.
Yeah.
They meticulously color graded it to black and white.
So Godzilla -1 color approach.
Yeah.
They didn't just hit like black and white filter.
but it makes it more powerful in some ways.
Yeah. It highlights the emotional core of it.
Yeah.
And it makes it even more of a noir chase movie. But as a trade-off, it does neuter the violence.
For some people, that would probably make it more bearable.
There's like a fight scene at the very beginning where he's like, beheading people, and the guys are still fighting him. I would be running. I'm out of here, But that's just me. I don't think I've seen. We saw that one movie he did, musical that we saw of Les Miserables.
Yeah,
but yeah. But he's a very impressive actor because he can do the song and dance, and he can play a
very serious.
One thing I like is that the movie in general is also, it was written such that you don't have to have seen any other X-Men movie to follow along.
Right.
The first time we watched it, we had barely seen any of them, and I thought that actually worked.
Yeah.
Now the mutant, the albino, I can't think of the guy's. Caliban. He's in one of the other movies as he's the guy that runs the transport center.
Yeah.
And suddenly he's in this. And Steve Merchant, I think was his name.
Yeah.
Really good job with the character.
Yeah.
So again, it's really good acting all the way across, and it's a really good story, very intriguing, and you say it goes to the depths, and then there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Also, even though the movie is dark, it still has a sense of humor.
Yes.
In just the right place.
Yeah, there's one where he's beating up his car.
We've all been there. Really beating it up. Yeah, and then he collapsed. that was. So, after Logan,
is Deadpool 2.
right?
Yes. This I'm holding up the super duper cut, but it has the theatrical cut on it as well.
Right.
Oh yeah, and then they also made PG-13 Once Upon a Deadpool
Inglorious PG-13.
to try to get as much money as possible for the buyout
And this
or the merger.
sort of the Once Upon a Deadpool sort of uses the Princess Bride,
Yeah.
which I wonder if they asked permission to do that or not. But anyway.
So anyway, Deadpool 2. This is probably the weirdest comparison, but to me, it's
Like, hear me out.
yeah. Hear me out. To me, it's kind of like watching Shrek and then watching Shrek 2.
Okay.
In the sense that Shrek 2 is on a technical level superior to the original and has a more complex story. The issue is it's too of the time.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
The jokes are too dated.
Yeah, as I recall, it was yeah.
that's what I mean. It's the it takes a little bit of the wrong lesson.
Right. Now, there are some highlights in this movie, of course.
Yeah.
Zazie Betts, is that how you pronounce her name? Plays Domino.
Or is it Zazie Beats?
I think it was Beats.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Again, I apologize.
Tell us in the comments who is correct.
But she's really good in this movie.
Yeah.
And the Domino character is fun,
Yes.
and the luck is others. I'm hoping she's in. I don't know if she will be, but she's really good.
And Josh Brolin is Cable.
Right.
It's not a comics accurate Cable necessarily. They got the time travel part right, but they got the Future Warrior part correct. But Josh Brolin played him really well, I thought.
Yeah.
And Ryan Reynolds still does a good job as Deadpool. It also has a much better depiction of Juggernaut.
Yes.
I actually like how Juggernaut is more matter of fact. Like, I'm gonna rip you in half now, and he just rips him. But I thought to me the jokes were where it actually works against itself because there's almost like too many.
And also, a lot of them didn't age well.
Yeah, a number of them didn't age well, and it's either a little bit, it's almost too self-referential, or it's really there are too many pop culture references.
It's also maybe a little too raunchy.
Now, there are also places in there where it's, trying to show his love for, I can't think of her name, sorry.
Vanessa.
And, trying to get back to her and,
Yeah, so I like the emotional journey he goes through.
Yes,
Yes.
but the jokes don't.
And, yeah, so it's really it's like Shrek 2. It's more the humor that holds it a little bit.
Okay. So they
Or the pop culture
So they made a
references.
DreamWorks animated.
The recurring joke with Black Tom is still funny. Though.
Yeah. There's some funny stuff in there.
Yeah, there are still really funny jokes. Yeah. But for every really funny joke, there are a couple that fall flat
Right.
now.
Yes.
And I will say the movie was a lot funnier at the exact moment it came out.
There's
Yes.
a little bit of throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and what sticks, and sometimes what sticks at one point doesn't stick as well
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, I also like the dynamic between Deadpool and Russell,
Yeah.
Yes.
or Fire Fist.
Yes.
So then there's the Super Duper cut, which
So an extended cut.
yeah, it's not only an extended cut, it changes some of the music and some of the jokes. And I think I liked some of the added scenes in Super Duper cut, but I thought some of the altered jokes weren't as funny as the theatrical cut.
The one joke became even worse.
Yeah, and also some of the music choices were not as good as the theatrical cut. Like, you lose a big one for some people, including me, is near the end of the movie, you lose the acoustic Take On Me,
Right.
Yes.
which actually worked surprisingly well.
Right. Okay. So
Then, PG-13 cut.
yes, with
Fred Savage.
yeah,
Yes.
and then they show at the end. I don't need to see Fred Savage ass, but it was kind of. I don't like when people are taken hostage, but but it was kind of funny,
Yeah,
especially you seen Princess Bride. Otherwise, you wouldn't get the joke.
Yeah, it's better if you see this after at least the theatrical cut, because it's also kind of a meta commentary on it in a funny way.
Yes.
There's the context is Deadpool telling the story to Fred Savage, and Fred Savage occasionally provides commentary.
Yeah, is that just lazy writing?
Yeah,
Why not write? Why say that? Why not just write a better joke?
yeah.
Why not just write better?
With they obviously they do cut stuff to make it PG-13 or tone down some elements, but I actually, and I think because we saw all three cuts in a row, we actually ended up liking this one the best.
Okay.
Because, not to say the others aren't good, but there's always a trade-off with the movies.
Mm-hmm.
But with the PG-13 one, the plot moves faster. It doesn't have nearly as many pop culture references,
Right.
and
It tones down the raunch.
yeah,
Could be PG-13.
yeah, of course. But it's also just fun in its own unique way.
Right.
Well, I ended up preferring that mainly because the plot moves faster. As there are points in Deadpool 2 where it feels a little slow,
Okay.
or they didn't have to do this.
This cut also has some original footage.
Yeah. So again, there's always a trade.
Right. Okay.
It has outside of the framing device. It has some extra footage, some different footage that's not seen in either of the other two cuts.
Yeah. So
Okay. So after that,
we have
After that, we have Dark Phoenix,
which is even worse than Apocalypse.
or X-Men Dark Phoenix for some.
Yeah. But even worse than Apocalypse.
so they were trying to retell the Dark Phoenix saga.
Yeah. But it was also, they were trying to do Dark Phoenix better than X-Men 3, but it was also totally boring.
Yeah.
I fell asleep again.
It was kind of a snooze fest.
And the actors playing Jean and Steve, Cyclops,
Scott.
Scott. Sorry, bad with names. They don't have the same, I'll say, gravitas as the actors that played them in 3.
Yeah, and in general, the actors don't do it as well.
Yeah, and it's sort of like I kind
McAvoy and the guy that played Magneto are fine.
yes, but they're just. I was not impressed by those two, and they don't seem to have the same. As I say, you can kind of understand why they got together in 1, 2, and 3, but this one was like, really? What? You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't say this before, but it's like no matter what they do, they can't convince me that McAvoy grows up to
Yeah.
be Stewart, if only because of the accent.
Yeah, it's a totally different sound. Yeah, they're not good with showing you early versions of the characters because they don't grow up. They obviously don't grow up. Stryker doesn't get shorter and more Irish.
It's like I think they're both good. I think they're both good in the role, but they don't quite feel like the same character.
They fit together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's a piece missing.
Was there anything redeeming about Dark Phoenix?
It had Quicksilver for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
More Quicksilver.
Yeah, more Quicksilver would have really helped my engagement with
Like
this
he
one.
was barely in it at
They
all.
did one thing and then disappeared.
Yes.
I was exaggerating with the 5 seconds.
No, but it was short. It was
Yes.
like in the first raid, they save and then, yeah,
Yeah, then he said something really funny, and then
gone.
yeah,
Never see him again. Yeah, this is where they rescue the astronauts in space, and
yeah,
we heard him. That's how she goes.
and then late aliens
Yes.
who
Yes.
we never learned their names.
Right.
One of them looks like the albino from Ventureverse.
That was my feeling. The hairstyle, everything. She was like, yeah. Yeah, I was like, really? Okay.
And then finally,
Lastly, we have the New Mutants.
Which,
now people probably expect us to. Some might expect us to just rip into it, but
it had a lot of potential.
yeah,
It was kind of I'm always the one that always says this couldn't have had you couldn't have one person handling all of them that way.
yeah,
So, but they did. It was very. You can tell it was kind of. I mean, it's almost a. What do you call it when you have everything happen in one place?
a bottle episode.
Yeah, it's almost a bottle episode because everything happens in basically a room and a room and a room and a room.
Yeah,
And they're sort of. It goes back to. Is it Trask again? But I mean, the idea they're trying to raise them to be warriors or killers.
now they've been trying to build up since was it the Wolverine?
Yeah.
Or was it Apocalypse? Essex.
Yeah, starting from Apocalypse, which the post credits for that connects to Logan.
Right.
Yes.
They're going in and stealing.
Yeah.
The
So
Essex.
they're trying to do something with Essex Corporation, which is Mr. Sinister.
Right.
They're teasing him so hard, but they never got to do it.
So the New Mutants continues that.
Right. So they're more of the same experiments that gave us Laura.
Yeah.
And
I thought New Mutants was actually pretty decent.
yeah,
It could have been way better.
could have been better.
Like
and,
the reshoots that they wanted to do would have helped.
Deadpool, it actually has an interesting backstory with its production.
right.
It's like, they after filming was completed, they were going to do reshoots, but then the merger was happening, so that got postponed.
Right.
Like repeatedly.
Repeatedly postponed, so got to the point where the director and the actors kind of moved on, and then eventually they also kept pushing back the release date. They ended up just releasing it without any reshoots.
Right. I mean, it's not.
And so this is the only one of the Fox stuff. I don't know what Deadpool and Wolverine does, but this is the only one to have the 20th Century Studios logo
Right.
in front of it.
It's now a label instead of a company.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just, it could use a little more care, I guess. But you get the idea. I mean, they're interesting characters.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, I have a hard time believing this one, I'll say Muggle, could handle these, people that could do, they have mutant powers.
She does have an ability.
What is their ability?
Those barriers.
Right.
Yeah, it was the she generated the force field that kept them in.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
Which
that's right.
is the question of how they got food.
Yeah, and she did everything. There's no, but there's usually you'd have a staff in an institution like that of more than one person, but
You could kind of feel the low budget.
yes, and that's why again it feels a little bit like a bottle.
They still get clever with their low budget, but you can still tell it's a low budget.
And again, they're captives, and the idea they're promised something that never is not really in the cards.
Yeah. Now, what makes this different is it's a horror movie, or
Yes.
it's trying to be a horror movie.
Right.
Yes.
And for a horror movie, it's not like scary,
Right.
but I liked the idea of what they were doing. In general, the New Mutants is like it's a good idea, but it could have been executed better.
This is something that if they have to remake something, this would be a good thing to remake and
Yeah.
actually spend the money
Yes.
that it would require. You don't remake Logan,
Yeah.
but remake something that the idea is you should remake something that didn't quite work, and that would be I think a good candidate for it because the characters were interesting. It's just
Like, is there a Maltese Falcon? It took them 3 times to get it right.
Yes.
and I'm sure they'd love to do it again because they own the IP. Anyway,
As is, this movie is actually, like, decent.
yes.
And I actually,
Unlike Dark Phoenix, no one fell asleep.
I think I ended up liking it a little. I ended up kind of liking it, at least in part because Dark Phoenix was so bad. So that lowered. the
Yeah.
bar.
This seems like a franchise that kind of went through some hands that didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to compare it to Die Hard, but that went through, every film was a different director, different idea, blah blah blah. They don't necessarily seamlessly go together. They kind of like, somebody made it like the guy that did the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
They gave, then you can direct the next movie. It's like, I just think they kind of just didn't really understand what they had in some
So a
ways.
little disjointed.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't help is that unlike the MCU, which started going on relatively early, they didn't plan it,
Right.
and Fox just needed to keep doing something with it because that's all they had.
Yeah, and they didn't want to lose rights to use the character, so they got to keep pumping something out.
Yeah.
But they also had Fox also had Fantastic Four, and look how that turned out.
Let's not go down that. That is,
That's a whole other discussion.
yeah. And my guess is, aren't they going to reboot them for the MCU?
Yes.
2025.
I could almost care less.
So that creates a pattern where there is a new Fantastic Four movie every 10 years. Or a
Yeah.
new try at it every 10
Yeah,
years.
and they
Yes.
don't get better. At least the last two are. Not,
Yeah. I already
Yeah.
feel kind of burned.
Yeah, I'm to the point where
Yes.
you got it's got to be something that would make me want to overcome the.
It's
bad
got to be really
aftertaste.
special.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so no, I don't think it's going to be, but that's just me.
X-Men.
So
Back to X-Men. Okay.
now coming up is Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool and Wolverine, I've tried not to overhype myself, but I have been following the production
Okay.
to an extent, and I've seen a lot of the trailers. I've considered not watching anymore just to not potentially get spoiled. I've still been collecting stuff related to it. Like, there's a claw machine
Yes.
at some AMCs.
Ah, yes.
And there's actually one near us. And we have coins.
Yeah, but a claw machine, I think it's for like a chip joint on the midway of your state fair. It's chances are you're not going to win with it, and it's sort of like giving people false hope they're going to get something really cool, and probably 1 out of 100 is going to get anything.
Starring another Deadpool Comic-Con exclusive. I forgot if it was 1 or 2. Another one was there was the exclusive toilet seat cover.
Yeah.
You could make that an exclusive.
Right. I gave those away at in the restrooms.
Yeah.
And I'll say, my wife, your mother, saved one back, and I still think we should frame it and put it in one of the bathrooms. But that's just all right. So, anything else we want to say about X-Men besides we're looking forward to X-Men, Deadpool and Wolverine?
That's Deadpool and Wolverine will be the first R-rated MCU project. Technically not the first mature one, but the first R-rated one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming out at a point where Marvel has been getting diminishing returns from an aimless
Post Thanos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope Deadpool and Wolverine actually is sort of the juice they need to...
Yeah, I'm hoping that they don't turn Wolverine into a joke or whatever. You know what I mean? I hope that he is Wolverine,
Yeah, well, Hugh Jackman was actually involved in the production, so I think he had a say.
Yeah, I'm just, again, I just don't want it to turn into, topical jokes that don't last or whatever.
Yeah.
But also interesting, this was confirmed by the trailers, is that it's not a rebooted Deadpool, but rather the same Deadpool from the Fox movies.
Yeah, it's the same Deadpool, and this is already in the premise, but it's a variant of Wolverine, so it does not conflict with Logan.
Okay.
I might be wrong, based on I might be proven wrong when the movie comes out, but the impression I got from the trailers is that it's sort of, if you will, it looks like it's the MCU from the perspective of the Fox timeline.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
There's also formally introduced mutants into the MCU,
Right.
who were previously not,
Well, yeah.
because Fox had them.
All right. Anything else we want to say about X-Men?
I guess just I'm looking forward to.
Okay.
If you want to watch any of the animated shows, pretty much all of them are good, but I would still recommend Evolution.
I'll also mention there was a previous podcast where we interviewed Stephen E. Gordon, who was the character designer for Evolution.
Yes.
If you want to check that out.
And if you're gonna watch any of the movies,
Right.
I would say the original trilogy, and then beyond that, the good ones are Deadpool, the Wolverine,
Logan.
yeah,
Yes.
All right.
and Days of Future Past was also good.
Okay, so
The Rogue Cut.
If you're watching this on YouTube later and you like this, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and leave a comment below if you have any opinions of your own about the X-Men movies. And
we'd love it.
If you made it this far, type maximum effort.
yes,
All right, so until next time, I'm David Hankins,
I'm Paul Hankins.
I'm Trevor Hankins.
and you've been on the air with Power Squared.